They have the qualities to get knowledge and to give knowledge. And that's the most important thing in society. Because we suffer. Suffering is because we do things that are wrong. Anyway, he was there to give a lecture, and he was staying in the city at a very famous yoga studio. And the head of the yoga studio couldn't find anyone to cook for him because they're very pure. So their consciousness, they're very much concerned that their consciousness and the mode of goodness and what you eat and who cooks it has a profound effect on your consciousness. So the only person they can find was my friend, Kastuba. Very Brahminical, very good sattvic cook, knows how to cook. So we were going to a lecture of his. I was staying at Kastuba's house, and he said, we should pick him up. So we picked him up, and he was there with his wife. It was just such a pleasure to see such a Brahminical gentleman. But I had another appointment, so I could only stay for the beginning of the lecture. And he was lecturing on the Yoga Sutras. And at the beginning of the lecture, he gave a happiness test. And I thought it was he's such a good teacher because it got people to think. So I think that's the way I start. I haven't even decided exactly what I'm going to speak about. I may just ask for it. I'll ask you what I should speak about. What? Okay. That's not the subject for today. Right? That's what you want to hear. So he asked these questions. So this is the happiness test. And the first thing you have to understand about happiness is it's the one thing that you all have in common, is that's your goal. And if you say, no, this is my goal, no, that's the means to get happiness. So this is the happiness test according to Shastra. First question is, have you found what you're looking for? And this is so important. And what he said is, to pass the happiness test, you have to say yes on 3 questions. The first question is, have you found what you're looking for? I write articles every week for the last 10 years. And I wrote one article, The 4 Pillars of Life. The 4 things that you need. Just the foundations. Which a proper society provided you. The modern society doesn't provide it. Previously, they'd be provided to you. What your occupation was, who you would marry, where you would live, and what was your spiritual path. That's just the beginning. That's just the basic foundation. And in the modern society, people are not sure where they're going to live sometimes. To find the proper mate. Indian culture is better at these things. a satisfactory occupation, your spiritual path. Especially in Western society, it's sometimes hard to find people who have one or two of these things settled in their life. Because if they're not settled in your life, that's all you think about. And you never think about the most important thing, which is spiritual life. But anyway, you may have said, yes, I found what I'm looking for. And sometimes, you have an ambition. You really wanted to find the proper mate. You really wanted to get into the proper school. You wanted to get the proper job. You wanted to have the proper money. You see, you may have actually found what you're looking for. So someone may say yes, and you'd be surprised, in modern society, people generally can't even answer yes on the first question. But somebody may have said yes. Then there's the second question. Is it eternal? Because if what you're looking for, if you think you found what you're looking for and it's not eternal, then it's not pure happiness, because it be filled with duality. And what's the duality? That what you are looking for and are attached to, therefore, will be taken from you if it's not eternal. And because it will, you'll always feel that. I remember when I came to Krishna consciousness, there's certain things that I remembered. And one of these I remembered because somehow or other, before Krishna consciousness, I didn't understand that I was eternal. And therefore, my future was non-existence. And therefore, it's kind of your enjoyment, and it's really in your consciousness. Your enjoyment is like a meal on death row. It's going to end in nothing. It's going to end in non-existence. So that always rests on your head. When you know, and even when you know, you have to realize it. If you haven't realized it, then you're fearful. One of the kleshas in the Yoga Sutras, there's 5 kleshas, there's 5 foundational causes of suffering. It begins with ignorance, ego, attachment, aversion, fear of death. And they say that this is a proof of reincarnation because even a little child is afraid of death, even though he hasn't experienced it in this lifetime. Because what happened? The trauma at the end of life, when everything is taken away from you, it creates such an impression in the consciousness, it stays with you when you're born in your next life. So I remember when I got Bhagavad Gita and I understood the Heinos Min Yata Dehe Komaran Yovanam Jarat Tata Dehantara Praptir. The embodied soul passes from childhood to boyhood to youth to old age. Similarly, at the time of death, it accepts another body. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by. I realized I was internal. I read the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It awakened that within me. Even though maybe I believed in God at one time or didn't, but we didn't really think about it deeply. I remember the relief of that. I remember, maybe you all believed you were eternal from your very birth or something. I didn't. I remember the relief of that. Because there can be no happiness if your end is non-existence. So you may have said, yes, I found this, but if it's not eternal, then you can't be fully happy. But then someone may say that, yes, I have found what I'm looking for because I've come to the path of bhakti and an eternal relationship with God. Or someone may be a Christian, they may have found Jesus, that's eternal. Someone may be a yogi, they found that, so they may be happy. And okay, so you're still you really, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for God, and you found God. Okay, but there's one more question. Are you always living with what you were looking for that's eternal? Are you always with it? And that's the purpose of yoga. The purpose of yoga is to live within the soul. Even if anybody practices meditation and they can calm the mind, you'll see such a difference between the real self, which may be even the preliminary feelings of gratitude, humility, service, living in that consciousness, and you'll see how different it is from this consciousness based on the false ego. And therefore, based on that false conception, your fears, your ambitions, your anxieties, and it goes on constantly. And you'll see the soul is so much different than that. So the purpose of yoga is to bring you to that point of having the proper faith and living it in all ways. And what is faith? Faith is not just I believe or not believe in Krishna or Jesus. That's not faith. Well, it is faith. But actually, faith means two things. It means to have the right objective or goal and to live within that. To really have that right objective or goal. So this is how yoga works. First of all, first principle of yoga, first principle is all our problems are perceptual and not actual. All our problems are not what exists, it's how we perceive what exists. And the whole purpose of yoga or any spiritual path, and the purpose, one of the chanting Hare Krishna, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, is to bring the mind to the platform of sattva. Sattva means goodness, but it means the nature of being. So the mind is the nature of the mind. It's a lens. It's a lens to perceive things. And when the mind is in sattva, then what? It's clean and it's not distorted. So this is the principle of yoga. This is our mind now. And this is what we're looking through. And because we're looking through this mind, we don't see things properly, and therefore we suffer. And the classic example, and I've made this phrase, is that death is the illusion of non-existence. Your greatest problem, which is losing everything. A sadhu in Vrindavan. I've lived in Vrindavan now for maybe today or something is my 50th birthday in Vrindavan or something, because I came in May in 76, maybe my 50th. So one sadhu, don't stop that. When a sadhu in Vrindavan told me, he said, the pain of death is not the physical pain. He said the pain of death is losing our attachments. That's what suffering is. On the material platform, what suffering is when the world doesn't move according to our desires. And therefore, we suffer. When something comes to us we don't want, we suffer. When we lose something that we like. So death is when you lose everything in the material sphere. So that's the greatest problem. And death doesn't exist. Death itself doesn't exist because we're eternal. It's the problem of death is perceptual. Even the Gita says self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. I was there in Vrindavan when Prabhupada came to leave the world. And I was there. There weren't many people living in Vrindavan. It was 1977. Maybe it was May or something. And Prabhupada was in Rishikesh. And he was trying to recover his health. And then in the evening, his legs swelled up. And then they had wood shutters, and it was a storm. And they started to shudder, and he thought this is inauspicious. He said, take me to Vrindavan. And he came quickly to Vrindavan. And then we were told in the morning that Prabhupada is coming. And we went to his room. And I don't think there were any more people than there were here, because that's how many people were in Vrindavan. And in our temple, and Prabhupada looked at us and he said, now I've come to leave. But if one must leave, let him come to Vrindavan. He said there's the white sands of Raman Reti around our temple. It was white sands, and he said the Jamuna. And then he said, with conviction, what is death but a change of body? What is death but a change of body? And then he quoted that verse from the Gita. As the embodied soul passes from boyhood. And then we were there when Prabhupada left. A self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. It's just like there's this analogy given, this metaphor of a child who has a pot of water and the moon is reflected in the water, and then, because it's heavy, he shakes and he screams to his mother that the moon is moving. The moon is not moving. So the self is eternal. And unless you realize that, you live in fear. That's why in the Bhagavatam, the whole Bhagavatam is based on, if you want to be fearless at the time of death, then chant, hear, and remember Krishna. I had one experience. It doesn't, you come to spiritual life. It's not that that the world starts to move according to your desires. You just develop a different objective. Your objective is not how the world moves around you. Your objective is how you respond to the world. So still those things happen. The body is karma. And even if you surrender to Krishna, you come under Krishna, and then he sees these laws and he may let them go to purify you. That's another question. But I was going through one of those periods. And one of those periods where your desire was like this, and the world was going like this. It happens to us. We call it tragedy. Right? Generally, we want to go like this, and then the world goes like this, and this. But when it just goes completely against your way. So what did I do? I took shelter of the holy name. And I remember I was in Gitanagari, and I started to chant, and I chanted more. And I chanted and chanted. And then I had a realization. The person who is chanting and the activity that he is doing does not end with the body. The material activities and the identity of the person who's doing it ends with the body. So you're always in fear. But when you start doing spiritual activities, and you start cultivating that, and in my book here, I show I have an article, Kudos to Karma, how you work in the world, and maybe I'll read that one, you become Krishna conscious and things. But when you're identifying as a devotee of God and doing activities as a devotee of God and becoming attached to those activities, then I had this realization. The person who I am and the things that I am doing in life do not end with the body. That's how you become fearless. When you actually see what's there. So this is how yoga works. Bring the body to sattva. So sattva means beingness, the true nature of something. The true nature of the mind is like a lens. And when it's clean and not distorted, you can see properly. And when you see properly, you see God and you see yourself. Prabhupada said, when one becomes Krishna conscious, he becomes thrilled every moment. Why does he become thrilled every moment? Because he sees God. What is the illusion of this world? The illusion of this world is that we see things as separate from God. It's Maya. It's not this. It's not separate from God. That's the illusion. And then And then when you see that, you become thrilled every moment. Why? Because we have a relationship with God. And what happens in relationship? What happens in relationship is love. Love is pleasure. The essence of the Ladini Shakti, the pleasure potency of God, is love. So what happens? Love is the energy between two people, and that's the pleasure of life. Right? You know that's your pleasure. When you have the proper relationship and you're with that person, that's the pleasure in life. And we have that relationship with God. So when one becomes free from illusion, he sees everything as energy of God. He not only sees it, he feels it. Our priyojana, our goal, is not just to understand God, but is to feel God. Prophets, you become thrilled because you feel. So this is what happens. So we have to bring the mind like this, and then we can see properly. And this is even any psychological process. What does it do? It doesn't tell you, it tells you how to see things in the proper way. Your psychological problems are because you're not seeing things properly. And what is it? Even in that material field of psychology, the study of the mind, it tries to give you the tools to actually understand things in a higher way. So this is what happens. This is the mind. This is the mind. And this is how our consciousness is. And this is what yoga means. Any yoga. Any yoga says pick one thing and focus on it. And what happens when you pick one thing and you focus on it? When you pick one thing and you focus on it, what happens? The other thoughts become quieted. And your mind moves to a higher level of perception and contentment. You're never happy on this platform. I remember I was in South America and we were doing some seminars, and I had this student visit me from the other side of the world. Somehow they were in America, and they were struggling so much that they didn't even want to come out of their room. But they said, Maharaj, for you, I'll come out of the room and listen to your class. So I gave class, and then after I was giving class, some of you know him, Jai Jagannath was giving class. And he has a real ability to conceptualize and express things. So she started to hear him speak. She said, I'll also stay for this class. And it was on the Yoga Sutras. You know, there's 6 darshans. There's 6 elements of philosophy. There's Vedanta, scriptural analysis. There's Sankhya, philosophical analysis. There's Nyaya, there's logic. There's, and yoga, there's 2 others, Mimamsa, Vaisheshika, like scientific analysis, and yoga is basically spiritual discipline in the mind. It's actually psychology. When I studied the Yoga Sutras, I started giving lectures on psychology. And I remember psychologists would sit in the audience and appreciate the analysis of the mind. So she sat through that, and after the class, she came to me, and she had a realization, because she was in so much anxiety. It's the mind. It's the mind. So this is what yoga does. It takes one thought, and you focus on that one thought, and the mind morphs to a higher level of perception and contentment. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, it mentions different types of yoga in the first 6 chapters. And then, at the end of discussing all the yogas, what does it say? Yoginam api sarvesham madhyatena taratmanam shradhavam bhajate yomam. Of all yogis, one who worships me with faith and devotion is the highest of all. Why? Because you can focus on an object. As a yogi, you have 2 choices. One is from the intelligence, jnana. I will focus on this because I understand that this is a good thing to do. I understand I should not concentrate on all. You fix up your intelligence, you learn to discriminate, philosophical analysis. I will focus my mind on this. The other is by emotion. And the emotional connection with an object is much more powerful than a philosophical connection with an object. Sometimes I just use this example that if someone told you right now that somewhere in this room is a deadly cobra, you would just be thinking of it all the time. All the time. Just imagine. There's an announcement and there's a big room and there's only one little door to get out. And someone said, somehow or other, someone saw that a cobra has come and snuck into the room here someplace, or you're on a plane. I would never watch that movie. I heard there was a movie, Snakes on Planes or something. I would never watch that movie. Can you imagine that someone tells you like a snake on a plane? Can you imagine the level of yoga you would be in focusing? So bhakti is an emotional connection with an object, because in bhakti, the object of meditation is not just a prop to steady your mind, but it's God in sound. In mantra, there's no difference than the object and the expression of it. So when you vibrate names of God, it is God. So when you're meditating on mantra, it's not just a prop to steady your mind, it's something you have a relationship with. And because it's not just a prop, but it's a person that you have a relationship with, it can reciprocate with you to allow you to focus beyond your karmic ability to do so. That's why bhakti is called the path of grace. And if you see the Yoga Sutras, and I've studied them, every single commentator, when it gets to the point of Ishvara Pranidhana Va, or you can meditate on God, they say this is the best. And it gives beautiful statements. Every commentator said, God said, let this person who is meditating on me achieve success. It's the path of grace, mercy. Grace, mercy. It means you get more than you're capable of achieving. Therefore, mantra is the best meditation. And then kirtan means you put the mantra in music. And music has rag and tal. It has melody and rhythm. Melody and rhythm are connected to deep parts in your psyche to increase emotion. So if you're chanting mantra and it's in music, then it facilitates the emotion that connects you to that object. That's why Yogi Namapi Sarvesha, of all yogis, one who meditates on me with heart, with faith and devotion, he's the topmost yogi. And then better than kirtan is sankirtan. When you chant with others. This is what Jiva Goswami says. When you chant with others, it's even more powerful. And why is it more powerful? Because real kirtan with the proper leader and the proper community, the nature of community is so important in spiritual life, because the nature of real community is that it's a place where you feel common interest is better than self-interest. And what blocks your consciousness from experiencing God is selfishness. And when we live in the world, it's so hard to open the hearts. I give an example. If you have the sun in the sky, it's so powerful, but you put an umbrella on your head and you won't feel the sun. So a small thing can cover you from a powerful thing. It can't cover the powerful thing, but it can cover you from the powerful thing. So the same thing, God is an energy. There's an energy between us and God, which is pleasure because it's love. And it's a natural relationship. But we're covered from that experience by a cloud of ego. And when you have community, you can drop that. And if you have kirtan in that community, with the proper rag and with the proper tal, then that energy of God within the name, it can affect your heart so profoundly. That's why in the Bhagavatam, when we had that question at the beginning, what is the duty of a man who's about to die? What should he not do? You want to be fearless at the time of death. Harinam Anukirtanam. It begins with that and it ends with Kaler Doshe Nidhe Rajan Eko Asti Mahagunam. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangam Parambraje. Ocean of faults. Surcharged with opposition to spiritual life. It mentions in the Bhagavatam. To this yoga. I'll share one thing I read with you. I was studying happiness. So there was a Harvard professor. So I was listening to him on happiness. So he had a lecture on happiness. And many things he said. And it is very startling, one thing that he said. He said, very essential for happiness is boredom. It sounds counterintuitive, but the point he made, I kind of, when he actually explained it, is really what he's saying is the contemplative life, being within your mind alone, is so important to happiness. A friend of mine gives seminars in Govardhan called Alone with Krishna, by the side of Govardhan Hill. No cell phones. And you'd be surprised. He has one from brahmacharis from Delhi. He said they've probably never been alone with Krishna. They're running around, they're preaching, it's all glorious, but alone with Krishna. The art. So what happens is, what he does, he gives them, they have a board, they have a picture of Krishna, they have something to read, and then they can read, and they can free write, and they can, for 2 hours, alone with Krishna. And when he's saying it, it was actually, I was suspicious of this professor, as I am with most Harvard professors. But this man said, he was talking about one thing he said in happiness, faith. It's so important. And he said, I'm not promoting, I'm a Catholic, that's the most important thing in my life, but something that makes us small. Something that makes us small in our life. So, very interesting. So I thought about it. Yes. Right? To be alone as a spiritual person, to be alone with God, to think, to go inside and to see what's there and to start observing it. And he says, in that consciousness, the most creative, positive things can manifest. But what happens instead in the modern world? Always on that phone. We can't be alone for a second. And this is the modern life. We can't be alone for a second. Whether it's going to shower, whether to wait. So actually, I had this thing. I said, wow, these things really sneak up on you. So that day, after I watched this lecture, I went to the ophthalmologist to check my vision. And I went in the waiting room. And then I said, hey, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to do nothing in this waiting room. I'm not going to take out a phone. I'm not going to see if there's a magazine. I'm going to do nothing. And actually think about life. Not just act impulsively, but actually think about life. So, and then people, anyway, there's so many things good, and that's what's good about japa, actually. You have to be alone with Krishna sometimes. It's great being with Krishna with so many people, and it's so powerful when you have kirtan. Shared bliss is higher than individual bliss. And community spirit allows us to shed the false ego and more easily feel the rays of bliss coming from God in our hearts. And the sense of community, and that's wonderful, being alone with Krishna. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing. I always remember one story. Gail probably heard it 100 times. When I came back from being in India the first time for 3 years, when I left for India, at best there was a cash register. There may have been the grocer with a pencil in his ear and a brown paper bag. Maya the grocer. I remember he's so proud. 54 cents, 72 cents. He added up. He was so proud. He loved that. And then at the counter, they touched it to the thing and it registered immediately. I was amazed. I never saw that before. They touched it to the counter and it registered with that code. And then I said, things have advanced so much. And then I caught myself. Because wait, this is not our philosophy. I said, but the quality of life hasn't improved. Right now, people are talking about AI. Right? Everything is supposed to improve, but it doesn't. It gets worse. Life has gotten worse. Life has gotten worse. I know people developing rules for family. No phones in a box at the door. Human interaction. I can't believe, what did I do before there were computers? What did I do with my life? How did I possibly live? And imagine in a proper life, the contemplative life. Anyway, so now I have to decide what I'm going to speak on. But I'll stop here. Are there any questions or reflections?
I have a question, Maharaj.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
You say that more important than philosophical understanding of God is the feeling of God. And at the same time, I heard that if it's too much sentiments or feelings, it turns into a sentiment.
Right.
So how to find this balance?
Right. Well, first, I'll clarify. I didn't exactly say that. What I said is the connection with an object is more powerful emotionally than philosophically.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you're thinking, I should meditate on this because it's the right thing, it's not as powerful as if I have an attachment to it. So it doesn't discount the need for philosophical understanding to have that attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, how will you know what's valuable? Without jnana and vairagya, without jnana, you won't know what to do. Without vairagya, you can't do it. But ultimately, that's where our meditation will be the most powerful. Not that we sit for 2 hours chanting because I have to do it, when we actually get an attraction for it. It's not minimizing the need for philosophical understanding. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matas sarvam pravartate iti bhutva bhajanti mam buddha bhavasma. I am the source of material and spiritual. The wise who know this engage in my devotional service. So without understanding, you're not going to engage in devotional service. So there has to be that philosophical understanding. Then, Tesham Satati Yuktanam Bhajatam. One who worships me, Tesham Satati Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Dadami. One who worships me always, then all this, the real understanding, don't have philosophical understanding. But if you have a comparison, the beauty of the bhakti path is that ultimately you come to that. The first important thing is sambandha again. Our conception of reality. Without that, you don't have a relationship with God. Then once you have a conception of reality, then you have to have abhideya again. What is the means to realize it? And the means to realize it is bhakti. For example, if someone wants to know you, can they know you just by analysis? They'll know you by love. Because only by love will someone give themselves to another person. God is a person. You can only understand the person when a person chooses to give themselves to you. And they'll only do that out of love. So first you have to have a conception of reality before you want to realize it. Think about it. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, loudly.
We mentioned that essential to happiness is boredom.
What's that?
Essential to happiness is boredom.
You know, English words have many, many meanings. He gave this title, The Importance of Boredom. But I think what he meant is that we have to be happy to be alone with ourselves, which most people will be called boredom. Right? Because most people call that boredom. He called that boredom. But what he's really saying, that's the most dynamic thing in the world. You know, I was preaching Lakshmi Nrsimha, great Vaishnav, used to be head of the Tawako Temple, head of the Brooklyn Temple, head of the Bhakti Center, head of a very wonderful Vaishnav. And I went down to Florida where he's preaching, so many people were there. So his wife is a doctor, and she was dealing with some people, and she became friends with the people. And the person was an Orthodox Jew. A lady was an Orthodox Jew. But very dynamic person, and also almost broad-minded, but follows everything. Even I saw her son with the yarmulke, and I was very impressed with her son. He's very religious. He's playing with my friend's son. And so she said she wanted to meet me, and we were talking with her, and she described the Sabbath. No electrical stuff. No electrical stuff. And the sense of connecting with God. Once, well, the Amish, the reason why the Amish don't have modern things is because they feel it destroys the family. They may have something, they may have some insight there. And they have one phone out in the shed, it may destroy the family. So there's things to say like this. But the boredom is only because people think it's boredom. And I just thought too, oh my God, what am I going to do in this waiting office for the ophthalmologist? What am I going to do? Got to get out something to read, something in my hand. This might be. I just sat there, and wow, so many things that to think about, to make better decisions in life. So many things. Very exciting. Otherwise, we just act impulsively all the time. What do you think, Jai Shivare?
I think it is true.
Okay. Any other reflections? Questions? Now we'll all be bored for. We're all going to be bored now for just a few minutes. Okay? No phones. If you have a question or reflection, the pressure's on. No pressure.
Nope.
Maharaj, he has a question here. I'll read for you.
What's that?
Why does an unknown person or object
What?
Here's a question, you want me to read this.
Yeah.
Why does an unknown person or object keep coming to mind? And why do I feel emotionally attached to it?
It's too far away, and the plant is blocking your mouth, so I can't read your lips.
Somebody else closer. Give somebody closer.
I can read.
Louder.
So my question is that about the mind. Means
Yeah.
why does I feel attached to something unknown? Means why does it keep bothering me?
Something unknown?
Yeah.
How does it bother you if you don't know about it?
Well, that's the question.
Huh?
Well, that's the question.
Why there's some fear and you're not sure what it is? Is that what you're saying?
It's not about the fear, it's about feeling affected,
What?
about the attachment.
Your attachment to something you don't even know what it is?
Yes.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard that before.
But it is happening.
What?
But it is happening with me. Example is
Attachment to something and you don't know what it is. I've never heard that before.
leave it.
I never. Yeah, I think this needs more than a public answer. Someone would have to talk to you and really find out what it is. But what happens is we have impressions in our consciousness called samskaras. Samskaras is something like this. Here's something that comes. Let's say when we're young, we take alcohol and we get intoxicated and it gives us pleasure. So it creates an impression in the consciousness that wants to be filled with the same thing that caused it. Right? Or let's say something bad happened. You know, we had a bad relationship with our father. It's a lady. And then she doesn't like men, so she tries to avoid in the consciousness. So since time immemorial, we have so many of these impressions, and they're not rational. They're not like analysis that I should be afraid of this or I should be attached to this. It's not based on Buddhi. It's not based on discrimination, based on Shastra. There's so many impulses in us. So all I can say is from the Shastra, Yesham Twantakatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmana Tedvanva Mohanirma Vajanti Mam Judhavna. Yesham Twantakatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmana Tedvanva Mohan. So many things are coming from the consciousness. So many things. But when you practice spiritual life, you practice tapasya. And tapasya means, despite the irrational impulses of the mind and senses, you continue in devotional practices. And then what happens is, these things go out of your consciousness. And you become purified of them. And then at the end of life, Vajanti Mantra, you can actually do bhajan, chanting, and fix, and sit down and concentrate. So the basic thing is to live a dharmic life with a sadhana and a spiritual practice, and other things that come, don't entertain them. Because if you entertain them, what happens is, you put them back in the consciousness. And then they'll come out twice as strong. Let's say someone took a drink when he was young. Now he likes alcohol, and then, he takes another, and then he has a desire he takes another drink. Now he's got two impressions. It becomes stronger and stronger. The only solution is to neglect the mind by following dharma and sadhana. That's the only solution. Thank you. Gail.
You remember when you gave a definition of faith? It's not I don't believe in God, I believe in God. It's having the right? Something.
Okay, what faith is Prabhupada said, unflinching trust in something sublime. So your faith is what you believe will give you happiness. That's your faith. That becomes your objective. So you say, no, I believe in Krishna, but you're scrolling all day. So your faith is in the internet. It's not in Krishna. Or it is in Krishna to the extent that you have that attraction. So real faith is Adao Shraddha, Tatat Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. Faith. Faith means it's so good, I appreciate it. It's so good, I'll be with the people that do it. It's so good, I'll practice it. It's so good, I'll give the things that have no value to it. It's so good, Nishta, I'll do it all the time. That's faith.
Yeah, well, the reason why I'm asking is
Yeah.
because, you know, you did make it sound as though faith meant trusting only in one thing, when actually, like you just mentioned, it may not be in the
Okay, but when we say Shraddha, that's the ultimate faith, the right faith, is that faith in God, because that's where the ultimate experience of pleasure rests. So when we say faith, we can say, we're talking about the right faith, that we have a connection with God, we feel the energy of God, and that's what we do.
that will yield
Yeah.
the soul's most, the ultimate fulfillment.
Everyone's looking for love. What is the object that is real, eternal,
And you have access for it.
and it's dear? It's God. You had a question, a reflection? Yes. Yes.
So I was thinking about a question where when we try to chant our round,
What's that?
when we try to chant our rounds,
Yeah.
even if we think somebody will be talking in this place, let me go alone, sit down
Yeah.
and chant in a room,
Yeah.
our mind goes the other way. We are chanting, but our mind is going, okay, I have to do this, I would
Yeah.
have done that
Wow.
way,
Yes.
and it just goes on, and you try to bring it back, but within a second it just goes on, multiple thoughts.
And
So I was
what?
thinking on multiple thoughts, how
Right.
do we?
Well, it says in the Bhagavad Gita that the mind is more difficult to control than the raging wind, but it is possible by constant practice and detachment. So I'm in favor of people taking an amount that they can do with some concentration and effort and perfect that and get stronger and stronger. Sometimes, you know, we set a goal and then it's too much for us. And then we become discouraged. We should always be moving forward. But but like anything else, we should push ourselves a little bit. But within our adhikari. And then we have to also understand that the modern life is not suited for spiritual life. And Prabhupada told us that. Prabhupada wanted simple living and high thinking. But the mission hasn't taken it up because people have been so conditioned to a false sense of opulence that they can't tolerate a simple life. Even though it's a community, even though it's fresh air, even though it's cows, even though it's organic food, even though the temple's across the street, or, you know, right there, even though we may not have to work as hard. But because we're conditioned to a false sense of opulence, we have to beg Krishna for mercy. We're not qualified for anything. This age is surcharged with opposition to spiritual life. It just has to make us beg God. And therefore it says, devotion in the form of kirtan is unlimitedly merciful to those who are devoid of a sense of false prestige. And therefore this age humbles us. That's all I can say. Due to our lack of qualification, we just have to call out for God. Knowing that we have no qualification, all of us. So, yes.
Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Maharaj, how can we figure out that how much ego we have, what level of ego we have?
What's that? How can we tell?
How can we figure out that how much ego level we have, I have inside? Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing that you want to find out.
Yeah, that's what
Now,
I'm
the
asking,
second
how
thing
to
is
find out.
finding out, do you want to get rid of it? Finding out is one thing, but you're finding out because I want to get rid of it. You know, that's what devotion is, surrendering to Guru and Krishna. Humility means that we understand that we're not the authority, which not just means we don't know the science of how to be happy, and we're failures in that. And we need to find a tradition that can guide us and seek that out and surrender to it. And that's how we get rid of the false ego. We come under the authority, not just a personal authority, but knowledge higher than our own desires and whims. But everything is reducing our ego. I don't know, but I heard family life helps. Never been married, don't know. Yeah, yes.
Alright, you said to be in the mode of goodness,
Yeah,
to be in a state of pensiveness.
yeah.
Did you mean pensiveness to be more in a state of stillness, or your?
When I say pensive, I mean thoughtful. There's impulsive and there's thoughtful. When you're just in passion, there's no distance between what happens to you and how you react. And when you react, it may not be dharma, it may not be for your benefit. But Prabhupada said when one is in the mode of goodness, he's pensive. That gives him a distance, a time between what happens and how I react. I consult my intelligence and I try to move in the proper way.
So it's applying both.
What?
It's applying both. Your actions doesn't have to be impulsive because you're putting thought to it.
Yeah, you're putting thought before you react. Govardhan, what's
Yeah,
the
Maharaj,
saying?
20 minutes kirtan, then
What?
prasad. 20 minutes kirtan, then
What is
prasad.
Like kirtan?
20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Okay.
Then prasad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll share. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna.